Hey everybody, this is Russell Medley and this is my EDL A56 Module 11 case study. So in this case study, there was an independent parent organization that had broke apart from the national PTA organization, and they decided to become independent, and they wanted to become more involved in the school. Their main focuses were parent participation and community involvement. The principal had always appreciated the PTA involvement in the past, but there seemed to be a shift in kind of the role that the PTA felt like they should have in the schools, and he was kind of puzzled by their need to be overly involved in other key aspects of the school. The parent organizations seemed to kind of have their own agenda, and when the principal did kind of express his views or concerns, they kind of just seemed to ignore and kind of keep pushing forward what they wanted to move forward with. Some of those included the decision and policy making processes in the school. They wanted to kind of have a stake in the education offered to the students, and they even went as far as having different committees that focused on the discipline, teacher performance, curriculum, and school evaluation that was happening in the school. Overall, the principal is accountable for what happens in the school, and with all his concerns, he's kind of unsure on how to respond to the parent group moving forward. When reflecting on this case study, I kind of found it hard to believe that a parent organization would want to become this involved in what's happening in the school. I understand that they're parents and they want what's best for their children. At the same time, though, these are people that have their own jobs and go as far as to want to be involved in the decision and policy making, things that these teachers and staff administration are educated on. It just kind of seemed puzzling to me as well on why they would want to be so involved, especially kind of their lack of concern and wanting involvement from the principal. They just kind of wanted to push forward their own agendas. So, as far as different legal or ethical issues in this case study, uh, in the case study, it showed that the parent group wanted to collect data from different students, parents, and teachers. And I thought that this kind of might be a violation of the FERPA laws that are in place, especially collecting data from students and parents about the families. Obviously, they would have to be very careful in how they obtain that information and what they did with that information and who they shared it with. I kind of went and researched more on FERPA, and it did say that different organizations that benefit the school could have access to that. But once again, I just think it has to be very careful on what data that is being collected and how it's being used. As far as ethical concerns that I had, I think it's important to let the professionals make the decisions and navigate how others can be involved. Ultimately, the principal is responsible for what happens in the building. And so by getting this PTA involved in all these decision-making processes and implementing kind of their own ideas, regardless of the consequences or the good things that happen from it, it's all going to fall back on the principal. The teachers and the administration are the ones that have the education, the training in regards to the curriculum, the evaluation, discipline, etc. It's kind of those things where, as teachers and administration, we don't go into these PTAs, the members' professional lives and their businesses, and tell them what should be done. So at the same time, why should they be allowed to come in and voice their opinions on things that we should be doing in regards to these different categories? Yes, we want their opinions and things like that, but I think there's a better way we can go about working together to get that information. Also, there's kind of a chain of command. So the parent group should probably have input from others besides just the principal, especially in some of these things in regards to curriculum, evaluation, and things like that. That might be something that the superintendent needs to be involved in. Probably more importantly, the school board. Obviously, the school board has open meetings where the public can come in and voice concerns and things like that. So that might be a more appropriate avenue for the PTA to go to try and get those ideas expressed before just going straight to the principal. Yes, you want to have that communication with the principal, but like I said, with these higher ticket items, that's probably something that the principal ultimately can't decide. That's something the school board would have to discuss and vote on as well. Another ethical issue I found was that in one of the meetings, I think it was when they were breaking up into different committees, the principal was not informed or invited to discuss those different committees. So I think it's important that, I think it's talked about in the case study where they wanted to work collaboratively with the teachers and staff, yeah, implementing these different things. But I think that it's important that before that even happens, that the principal should be involved in those meetings before these different committees were decided. So synthesizing all this information, I was kind of able to put it down into one sentence where the parent group wants more control involvement in school policies and decision making while disregarding the principal's opinions on the role of the parent group. So, what are the facts as far as the people, place, and program? First, the people. There wasn't a ton of information that was listed as far as the size of the school or like the age of the committee or the principal or years experience, things like that. We do know that there's a principal. We know that there is a PTA group that is now independent that broke apart from the national organization, and these are all elected officers. It was mentioned that the president of this PTA group was a young attorney. And throughout the case study, it also made mention of parents as far as their concerns on being confused on the back to school night and different things. So that must be information that came from the PTA group, just expressing the concerns of the parents as a whole. As far as places, there was a meeting that took place in the principal's office, and then it obviously affects the school that this principal and PTA are a part of. As far as the programs, there is the independent PTA group. The PTA group made mention of some of the areas they wanted to focus on, such as the back to school night, parent teacher conferences, and then the committees that they split up into in regards to discipline, teacher performance, curriculum, and school evaluation. So, kind of reviewing and prioritizing all the different information, the principal does see the value in PTA groups and how they can support the student in school. But having the PTA groups help in non-traditional areas of the school could be risky to stakeholders. We mentioned already how any fallback could be on the principal. The teachers would be asked to do more. I think it was during the parent-teacher conferences where the committee felt like the teachers needed to come up with their own individual presentations and be available or have those available during the parent-teacher conferences. Just more being asked of the teachers, and then kind of having that open access to their classes because the PTA mentioned that they wanted to kind of see what was happening behind closed doors. And that in turn might result in some distrust between the staff and parent groups. And that ultimately all would affect the students and their learning and things like that. I think there is more information that is needed on why the PTA group wants to be more involved than what they currently are and what they are unhappy with. It was mentioned throughout the case study, that they attended these meetings and didn't really like speak up or voice things out, and that's why the principal was kind of thrown off guard when all of a sudden at one of the meetings where all of a sudden they had all these big concerns. And so it would be interesting to kind of know more on if something was happening, and that's why they wanted to kind of have this more involvement, or kind of what the deal was with all that. And I think it's also important that the PTA needs to be made aware of the proper communication channels that they would need to approve their involvement with all the different things that they wanted to do. So the different options that me as a principal would have. The first option is just to do nothing. And while that seems silly, it's always best to just kind of sit back and maybe not do anything right off the bat, and just kind of gather more information and things like that. So that's one option, just do nothing from the start. The second option would be to allow the PTA group to get involved, so basically giving them what they want and letting them be involved in whatever it is that they want to do. The next would be to talk with the PTA about my expectations and kind of vision of how I see the PTA group helping the school and the students. As the building leader, I could just tell the PTA building that they need to seek my approval before any decisions are made. Ultimately, the decision rests with me, and uh, I don't want to sound like a jerk, but at the same time, I kind of have to put my foot down before I just let people kind of walk all over me and tell me what it is they're going to do and what they've already done, what they plan to do. I need to kind of set that balance of, well, I'm the building leader. Things need to be brought to me before we just start making decisions. And then the last option would be to create teams where there are representatives from the PTA group, other parents, staff, community members that we can all meet and discuss these different objectives. So, in evaluating the different options, as far as doing nothing, this might result in kind of some short term where the PTA won't get involved right away. So you just kind of let it sit on ice for a little bit. Maybe that might result in people kind of changing their perspective or their opinions. maybe been doing nothing. They just kind of ultimately drop it, and they don't want to get involved in the different ways they wanted to. A con of this, though, would be dragging out a decision might create tension, and it might put more pressure on me as a building leader that could affect the different relationships we have with the students and the families, especially those associated with the PTA. The second option with going with the PTA, this would make the group obviously happy and obviously more involved. It might help me kind of take some pressure off my shoulders, where they maybe they do a great job with the different committees and things that they want to do, and ultimately it helps our school as a whole. And like I said, takes kind of more off of my or takes more off my plate. Uh, but and also doing this, it would give me and my staff kind of less control over the decision making. Once again, might create some distrust between the different parents and staff. And then if things were to go wrong, ultimately it would fall on me as the principal. We could review. The next option would be reviewing the principal's vision of the PTA. So this would, and hopefully this is something that I would have been doing from the start, where I kind of see how I envision the PTA helping our school. But that would help in building communication and dialogue, and just helping build those relationships where maybe they didn't understand kind of what their role was, and so having that communication would kind of help everyone kind of see their role. The PTA still could reject my opinions and then they continue to push for more involvement. I could ultimately just say no. We're going to kind of do it the way how I see fit, and that the pro would be that it just kind of shows that I'm in control of the building's direction, and that they're there to just basically assist myself and the school. But the con of this would be it could result in kind of a lack of support for the PTA if I just take all and give nothing. It may avoid communication with it may avoid communication with me, and they might go above my head, and so then that might look badly on me that the PTA is kind of going around me and get what they want. The last option, creating teams to address the issue. This would be a kind of a collaborative effort where all stakeholders are involved and have input. However, the PTA may not get everything that they wanted and still reject the idea of the team aspect. There also, with a team aspect, could be too much input where it might just be hard to reach a decision because everyone has their own opinions, and it might just be hard to narrow in and focus on coming to a quick solution. So in my decision, I kind of had a combination of options. The first one I already mentioned, and this would be something I would have done early on at the beginning of the school year, is I would communicate my vision of the PTA involvement in ways that they could help our school and students. I would create a site council team that was made up of different members, such as school staff, teachers, members of the PTA, other parents, community leaders, as well as administration. That we would meet once a month to have discussions. I would also want to seek invitation to the PTA meetings where I could be on the loop of what is discussed. If there was resistance, I would communicate with the PTA about kind of the roles of our stakeholders. And while we want our input from all, it is up to the administration to effectively make the decisions. And I would point, if we still just couldn't come to a consensus on kind of the best course of action, I would point the PTA members to the next chain of command and kind of talk about who else they could go to try and get some more clarity as far as their roles or ways that they could help our school. So that might be the superintendent or the school board. And then finally, the implementation of this decision. I would meet with the PTA officers to share my concerns with their proposal and what my vision of the PTA would look like. I talked about creating that site council team, making sure that I have representatives from all the different internal and external publics. In these meetings, I would create norms in these meetings where everyone had equal input. So just everyone knew the expectation of these meetings, or of the members, and as far as what our goal is. I would share the vision and mission of our school and making sure that the decisions we make reflect on that vision and mission of our school. We would have a consistent time when we met each month. If a team could not decide on a solution, then we would move up the ladder in the chain of command. And then I think it's also important, finally, to have some sort of an evaluation process of the site council team, whether that be annually or biannually, where we gather input, we look at the strengths and weaknesses of our teams, we share the successes, and I think it's important too to send out surveys, like if we're happy with the way things are going, or areas that we can improve on. So that's kind of the decision I would take. Thank you all. Enjoy your day.